Hey, what up, YouTube? Is this your boy, the Visionary? Welcome to another episode of Firesidechats. This is going to be one of those conceptual vlogs. One of my theories I've been working on. The title of this one, the subtext is Sociology, Economics, and the title is Cultural Economic Sustainability Necessity. Now, this concept or theory, not even theory, it's really a concept that I've always talked about with my friends in order to build upon it, is based upon in constantly ongoing debate or discussion within the African American community in regards to our advancement, our development, and our ascension to, equality in society and whatnot. And one of the contentions is that, in my opinion, is that our culture is dying. If it's not already dead already. And it's dying because one of the most important building blocks that compose the culture, aka economics is business, is not developed or it's non-existent. And in my opinion, I believe that is the most important building block within the culture that we need to develop and build upon in order for the culture to survive and therefore the people. Now the thing is, culturally, African Americans are stunted in the sense that we are stuck in, I would say, a cultural loop where we can't break free from it. We are held back by a certain sort of mentality that is ingrained in us, from a religious perspective, from an academic perspective, from a political perspective, and from a financial perspective. And one of the things I believe should happen is that we attempt to break free from this by focusing on the economic building block within the culture. Part of the problem is that we are deficient in understanding the importance of business. Well, I wouldn't say deficient, but we do not focus wholeheartedly on business in general, in understanding how important that is to push and to, get on top of. And the thing is, economics in and of itself is the way by which peoples or groups of people survive, by producing and showing their value to the tribe or group. Now, back in the day, this was showed in different ways. I mean, you had a farmer, you had a witch doctor or a doctor, you had the priest. You had all sorts of people who had a specific trade or skill or ability that was necessary for the tribe. And if you fast forward, that evolved into business, and then that evolved into economics. And as we come into the modern day and age, African American culture is dead because we do not have a solid and prosperous economic niche to fall into. Now, what's an economic niche? An economic niche is basically a niche market in economics or a business where people or groups of people fall into that they know that are jobs that are readily available for them, with either in hostile times or prosperous times. Some people might say this is a stereotype, but if you actually look at different cultures, you never really hear them complaining about jobs specifically. If you look at the Chinese culture, if you look at the higher economic niches, you see a lot of them in the medical field, being doctors or being accountants. You can laugh at that, but I mean, those are the three major fields that these groups of people fall into. And then on the lower rungs in Chinese culture, you have, Chinese restaurants, laundromats, dry cleaners, and stuff like that, where these businesses might not be big time businesses, but they're businesses owned by specific families, and they stay in the family. Therefore, their children who are of age who can work in these businesses, or family members that need work can fall in and work for them. Same thing if you look at, Jewish people, they're real big in law firm and starting smaller businesses and whatnot. Same shit with white people, but granted, white people are the majority race in the United States and in the world in general, and therefore they have the greater opportunity to go into all these things. But the concept still remains is that those who are not the majority white tend to have economic niches to fall into, that we as African Americans do not. If you actually look at the actual economic niches that we have, that we are portrayed as having, either you are a basketball player, you are going into the music industry as being a recording artist or a producer, or you are being a model of some sort. One of those three. The thing is, all of those three economic niches are very, very irrelevant, and I would say inconsistent in being a consistent career field for us to fall into. All three are based on competition. Look at sports, for instance. Number one, when you get into sports, if you want to be a basketball player, this is how the shit goes. You go to high school, you join a basketball team, and then you go to college. Now, if you get a scholarship to college, you can go to college, and then the colleges have their own basketball teams. And then what happens is when the NBA does its pick, they only pick a handful of people. You know what I mean? So you have to be good enough for you to even get into a college on a scholarship, and then when you're in college, you have to be good enough for the NBA to go, we're going to do a draft pick and pick this guy from this college, and this guy from this college, and this guy from this college, and that's just a handful of people that, that are able to be picked based on whatever it is. It's an economic niche based on competition, and it's designed specifically so that you do not succeed, yet it's marketed to us for that same specific fact. Oh, black people in general, or Spanish people in general, don't realize that they're going to fail in this, so let's promote this shit as if this is a very economic opportunity for them to succeed, but the window for opportunity and success is very small and very limited. That's the point. Same thing with the music industry. Cats go into the business, I'm going to be a rapper, blah blah blah, or a music producer, and they get into the industry, and a lot of people complain and that they're failing or they're not getting love, not realizing you have to understand, you have to look at this, you have to look at history or the history of music without the concept of time. In every musical generation, in terms of hip-hop, let's say you have the 80s, you have the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. Or let's say the 80s, the 90s, and the 20th century. Let's say 10 years equals a generation. Within every generation, there's only, let's say, 30 people or groups of people that become famous or make it in the industry. Now, if you have statistically, and you can look up the statistics yourself, if you have a good 70% are African American males and a couple of females, I don't know what the statistics on the females, who are actually visible in the music industry business, who actually go into it. I'm talking about our young kids, cats that are 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, who are going hard in the industry, as if it's as if it's a stable economic niche to go into. You'll realize, there's only 30 so people that become big in any generation, yet you have a good 70% of African American people who actively invest in this industry as if they're going to get a career in hip hop music, whether or not they're going to make it big and become a big star, or if they're going to fall to the sidelines and become some lesser known rapper. The thing is, again, it's a economic niche based on competition, and it's designed for you not to win. That's the point. Why? Because it's not a career that they have a lot of rappers for. This is not something like you can go to college for, you get a degree for the shit, and then you get off and they hire you as a rapper. No, that's the point. And it's like, that's the name of the game, and cats don't realize, like, that's not something you should get into. You know what I mean? Stop, I don't want to say, African Americans or people in general are weak-minded, because humans are weak-minded, but, you're weak-minded because you actually believe, you're going to make it big and this and that. No. I mean, there's 100 or so people just like you, that are trying to get into the music business. What makes you special? Whatever. But, getting back to the point, economic niches, those are our specific economic niches, and it's corrupting the culture, and it's destroying us because it's not giving us enough economic opportunity for advancements in society. So what needs to happen is we need to actually build upon businesses within our culture, or let's say within our neighborhoods, that all neighborhoods or all communities have specific basic stuff like supermarket, corner stores, laundromats, what else is around the neighborhood, restaurants, stuff like that we need, that a neighborhood or a community subsist on. Those are the things that we need to build upon, that we need to create for ourselves. And then once we master that basic level, then we can go into the upper level in terms of marketing, accounting, import, exports, and stuff like that when we do business with other countries. And that's where we're failing at, because we tend to be very limited in our perception of things, in our perspective of the outside world, because that's what black culture is. Black culture is the reciprocal expression of the other, aka white or Indo-European peoples. That's what defined our culture, is us being different from white people, and therefore everything we do has to be the opposite of what they do. But in a nutshell, economics is very important to our culture, and we need to start learning how to start our own business and start to build upon our business and start supporting black-owned businesses in general, and learning about, creating an economic system or an economic cycle whereby once the money circulates within the people, then that money can be reinvested into the community and then used to build other things. All right, that is it for now. Stay tuned for the second video, which talks about economic systems and how it works, and why it's necessary and why we need to build up upon it, and how you can observe it and how do you see it in other cultures. All right, that's it. Deuces.